Now every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch who lived up north of Whoville did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why, we don't quite know the reason. It could be because his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps his shoes were too tight. But what we most think of all is that his heart was 2 times too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos. Staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm, lighted windows below in the town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging the mistletoe wreath.
And they're hanging their stockings.
He snarled with a sneer.
Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here.
Then he growled with his grinchy fingers, nervously drumming.
I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming.
For tomorrow he knew all the Who and Who girls and boys would be waking up early. They'd rush for their toys. Then, oh, the noise. Oh, he hated that the most. The noise. All the Who's, young and old, would sit down at the feast, and they'd feast. They'd feast, and they would feast. Feast. Oh, they would feast on Who pudding, and they would feast on Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch could not stand in the least. And then they would do something he hated the least. Every Who down in Whoville, all tall, small, would stand all close together with the Christmas bells ringing, and they'd stand in hand, and all the Whos would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing. And most the Grinch thought the Whos and Christmas singing, the Grinch thought.
I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how?
Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderfully awful idea.
I know just what to do.
The Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat, and he chuckled and clucked.
What a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer.
The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said,
If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead.
So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said,
Get up.
And the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Whos lay snooze in their town. All their windows were dark. Quiet soon filled the air, and all the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care when he came to the first little house on the square.
This is stop number 1.
The old Grinchy claws hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace, flew where the little Who stockings all hung in a row.
These stockings are the first things to go.
Then he slithered and slunked with a smile most unpleasant around the room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles and roller skates and drums, checkerboards and tricycles and popcorn and plums. He stuffed them in the bag. Then the Grinch said, very numbly, stuffed the bag and all the bags, one by one, up the chimney. Then he slunked in the icebox. He took all the Who feast. He took all the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash, while the Grinch even took the last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee.
And now I will stuff up the tree.
And the Grinch grabbed the tree. He started to shove when he heard a small sound like a coo of the dove. He turned around fast, and he saw a small Who, Cindy Lou Who was not more than just 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who'd gotten out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said,
Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?
But you know what, the old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie, and he thought of it quick.
Why, my sweet little tot? There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here.
And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got a hurried drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. And the last thing he took was the log for the fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Whose houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the others Whose mouses.
It was 1:15 dawn, all the Who's still in bed. All the Who's still a snooze when he packed up his sled. He packed up their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, the tinsel, and the trimmings and the trappings, 3,000 feet high up the side of Mount Crippet. He rode up his load to the tippy top to dump it.
Pooh to the Who's. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry boo-hoo. That's a noise I simply must hear.
So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why the sound sounded merry? It couldn't be so. But it was merry, very. He started down at the Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes, then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing. Without any presents at all, he hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came, somehow or other. It came just the same, and the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling.
How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags.
And he'd puzzled 3 hours, till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before.
Maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more.
And what happened then?
Well, in Whoville, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch carved the roast feast.